Hi everyone, it's Denise from Dobby Books. So, right now I'm going to talk about books. Imagine that. Okay, a book I finished, A House with Good Bones. Well, yeah, A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. It's a paranormal story. It was very good. And Pat from Book Chat with Pat is the person that I learned about this book from. This was her intro book to paranormal and horror, and this is a very light beginner kind of exposure to it. And it was a cool read. I enjoyed it. I finished it through last night because I got to a really good part and I didn't want to stop reading because normally I'll read a little while in one book, put it down, read a little while in the next book. I just read this the rest of the night because it got so good. It was a nice ending. I liked it. So, A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. This is a library book. I'll be returning it. The next book I'm still reading is the one by my classmate Carolynne Nelson, Silent Flame, which is a fantasy. And the creatures are called, each one has a bird name. So there's the, oh gosh, windbirds, cinderbirds, tainted bloods, all these interesting names, and these creatures, which all are birds. Some are very evil, some are very gentle, and you see their struggle with the good and the evil. And I have loved this story. Me, the person who's not into sci-fi or fantasy, I have loved this book. So far, it's only available on Amazon that I can see. Silent Flame by Carolynne Nelson. Excellent. And then the next one that I'm reading is Why Fish Don't Exist by Lulu Miller. I think I was in Barnes and Noble and I saw this book and something about the cover, the title caught my eye. Why fish don't exist? What an odd name. And it says A Story of Loss, Love, and the Hidden Order of Life by Lulu Miller. And I kept looking at it going, it had my attention. And on the back, it was voted a best book of 2020. A dark and astonishing tale of love, chaos, scientific obsession, and possibly even murder. David Starr Jordan was a taxonomist, a man possessed with bringing order to the natural world. But chaos seemed out to get him. His fish collection were demolished by lightning, by fire, and eventually by the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, which sent more than 1,000 specimens housed in fragile glass jars plummeting to the floor. In an instant, his life's work was shattered. But instead of giving in to despair, Jordan introduced one clever innovation that he believed would at last protect his work against the chaos of the world. When NPR reporter Lulu Miller first heard this anecdote in passing, she took Jordan for a fool, a cautionary tale in hubris or denial. But as her own life slowly unraveled, she began to wonder about him. Perhaps, instead, he was a model for how to go on when all seemed lost. What she would unearth about his life would transform her understanding of nature, history, morality, and love. And I had to read it. There was just something about this. I just had to read it. And I was reading the reviews, when you on the inside when you have other people who reviewed it. And one of them mentioned her prose, that just this is a book that the prose just keeps you reading. You don't want to put it down. And that's exactly right. This is a book that you read and the writing is just so beautifully said that you feel like you'd be stopping a song right in the middle if you put the book down. And I think I had to put the book down once, and I wasn't thrilled to do it. Her prose really is beautiful. There was a line that she wrote in here in talking about bullying, the struggles that her sister had with bullying, and she did as well. And she talked about how she wished she could be brave like this other girl in school. She said, I knew a braver girl, a sturdier soul, would laugh back at the boys. I knew how very small my problems were, but I didn't have that thing inside me. whatever it was. When I felt for a backbone, all I found was sand. And she just has such a way of saying things. I'll find myself getting my pencil and think, oh, that's beautiful. And I'll put a little mark next to it. Really beautifully written book. And it's just remarkable how she's combined her own story to the story of this scientist from the early 20th century who worked at Stanford, by the way. I believe he was the first head of the science department at Stanford. To put that very, I don't know, history, a story that I'm sure could be very boring if it's not done right. That story, her story, and another message, and how she was able to just kind of weave it all together. She really did a beautiful job. And this is such a beautiful book. The cover's very nice as well. This is by Simon & Schuster, and it was originally published in 2020. Yeah. And because I have to take the CSET 3 because I'm applying for a bilingual authorization in Spanish, I've got to brush up on the Spanish. So what I decided to do, and this was a recommendation by a professor who was giving a PowerPoint Zoom presentation to a bunch of other teachers who and education students on how to study for the CSET. And this was his #1 recommendation. He said, this would really, really do it. He said, read in that language. It's the best thing you can do. Read in that language. Make sure you're understanding the words. Do your translation in your head. Look up the words you don't know. Read in the language. And he's got a point. I have all these books in Spanish. Most of them are my mom's. I don't really read in Spanish all the time. I tell myself I really should read 1 book a year, at least 1 book a year, and I don't. And with the school year going on, I forgive myself. But now, because I'm going to take the CSET, I need to get very serious. So I pulled this book off the shelf by Gabriel, García, Marquez, Cién, Años de Soledad. 100 Years of Solitude. I have the book in English as well. But I don't look at that. I don't let myself look at that book. I don't even want to know where it is. It's back here. What I've done. And so it's such slow going. Look, I'm only there. Look, it's a pittance. But that's okay. I know initially it's going to be slow going. And what I end up doing is I'm reading the book. So here's the first page. I'm reading the book, and as I encounter words that I'm unfamiliar with, I look them up. I don't wait to read the whole chapter and then go back. That's more work than it's necessary. It's slow going because I stop myself every single time. I'll finish the sentences, the particular sentence, go back to that word, look it up, and write the word in English above it. And there was a new term, diáfono, which didn't make sense to me. So I looked it up in Spanish, found the word in English, that looks blurry, and then wrote the definition, hopefully in the context that it was being used in the book. Diáfono, which was diaphanous. And this has been my journey through this book. My test is at the beginning of June, and I'm just going to keep plugging along. I also purchased an Audible book from Libro FM of this book in Spanish. And what I do, after I've read through a page, a couple pages, whatever, if I feel the need to, I will play that section of the book in Spanish, and I slow it down. I don't play it at full speed because just like in English with its various accents, Spanish is the same way. So depending on the Spanish speaker's accent, I either can leave it at regular speed or I just slow it down by 0.25% so I can, follow along and read with the narrator. And that works really well. It's the same thing I'm going to be doing as I move forward in French. I'm going to be getting the book in French and slowing it way down and making sure I see those words that this person is saying and pronouncing and I can understand it. So that's what I'm doing. And because I have so many things I'm going to be doing and I want to be able to see it in front of me, including the projects that I talked about in my previous video, I went to Staples and I got a really plain, boring, old calendar page that has room enough for me to enter in the either the books I'll be reading for that day and or the study projects that I'm going to be doing for the day. And they probably won't be happening every day. Some are 3 days a week and others are the other 3 days a week. You know how that goes. But that's how I'm planning my busy, busy time off. So, oh, and you know what else I got? On a whim, but I learned this when I was studying at the library for a zillion hours a day. You don't want your break to be listening to the radio or watching something on YouTube or the news, what have you, because that shifts your brain into the wrong direction. And then you feel like you got to warm up your brain again to get back into the zone when you're studying. At my library, at my university, they had a table on the end. I usually sat at that table for some reason. At the very end of this table was always this big puzzle. And if students were in the middle of studying but they needed to get up and take a break, they would get up and just kind of work with that puzzle a little bit. And it was a quiet activity, just like their studies, but it shifted them into a different focus. And it also helped them take time off from the thing that they were working on, which you need. You need a break when you're doing in the study. And I was observing that and thinking, what a great idea. I think I'm going to do that. And when I was in Barnes and Noble, I'd say a couple days ago, I remembered that. And I said, I'm going to find a puzzle. So I found, I think this is a 1,000 piece puzzle of London. I loved the colors and the energy in this thing. So I said, okay, I'm going to get this one. And I already separated the edges from the rest of the pieces. And my dresser has really nothing on it. So I have all the space on my dresser. And that's where I've placed the box and the pieces and just fiddle with it as I go. And I told my husband, do the same thing. If you were just curious, just deal with the puzzle a little bit. I'm going to have fun with that. Let's see how that goes. Let's see how that goes. If it helps me take my mind off things, whatever, it worked. That is it, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with me. Enjoy the rest of your week. I love you all. Take care. Bye-bye.